Oscar Solomon was 19 years old when he enlisted in the Army. He was stubby yet well-built. Oscar was born with short brunette hair and blue-gray eyes. His hair was straw-like and greasy no matter how much he washed it, and his eyes looked like tinted glass. His wardrobe consisted of basketball shorts and loose-fitted tank tops. On a Friday afternoon, Oscar was hanging out with his friends, Marcus, Smitty, and Dakota Lansworth. They all were laughing at each other while they played Call of Duty Zombies on Marcus's Xbox. Dakota was the first to die in the game. He threw the controller down on the couch. "This isn't fair. I couldn't move," he cried out. Marcus leaned back on the couch, laughing. "How do you die that fast? The round just started." Dakota flipped him off, then went to the kitchen to grab a bag of Lay's potato chips. Oscar and Marcus survived through the match until they got to the last stage. "Marcus, you better not screw us over right now," Oscar said while he killed the zombies that were swarming them. Marcus rolled his eyes and went straight to the final boss. "Oscar, if we lose, I bet you $100 that you won't enlist in the Army," Marcus snickered. "We won't lose. I'm too good to lose." Oscar rolled his eyes and killed the last zombie that was near him. He went to the final boss, helping Marcus and killing it. Marcus kept snickering as he was purposely taking damage from the zombie. "Marcus, stop moving in front of it," Oscar screamed at him, snapping his head to face the other. "I'm not trying to," he screamed back, obviously a lie. Oscar rolled his eyes and looked back at the screen, dodging a blow at the last second. "It's not that hard to beat this boss, guys," Dakota said from behind the couch. "Says the one who died 5 seconds into the match," Oscar and Marcus snapped at the same time. Marcus was killed by the boss after a few seconds and set the controller down. "It's all up to you, soldier." He laughed and went to the kitchen. Oscar groaned and continued the game, dying after a few more minutes. "God dang it!" He threw the controller against the wall and got up. Marcus came out of the kitchen. "Time to cough up the $100 and enlist, soldier." He chuckled and shoved a cheese slice in his mouth. Oscar sighed. "Fine, give me your computer." He went to the dining room table and sat down. Marcus nodded and walked off. Dakota went over to the table and sat down. "You're for real doing this?" "I tell Marcus to screw off, dude," he said with a concerned look on his face. Oscar shrugged and waited for the computer. Marcus came back after a few seconds to set the computer down. "Get to enlisting. I'll give you a week for the money," Marcus said and sat down. "I'll give you the money when I give it to you. Be happy I'm actually doing your dumb bet right now," he grumbled and went to the website. After a while, almost 3.5 hours of trying to remember personal information, Oscar was done enlisting. According to the website, I should get a text or a call from a recruiter in about a week. He leaned back in the chair, stretched out his arms, and let out a heavy sigh. "I'm ready for bed. I have absolutely nothing to do tomorrow, but I need to be awake enough for tomorrow." He got up from the chair and went to put his shoes on. Dakota and Marcus stayed seated and watched as he went to the door. "We'll see you in a few days. Bye, Oscar," Dakota said with a small wave. Marcus just nodded and shut his computer. Oscar left after saying his goodbyes and called an Uber home. Once he got back to his trashed apartment, he went straight to bed. Oscar didn't feel like taking a shower at that moment. He told himself that he'll do it in the morning. Oscar turned his fan on to the highest power and got under his gigantic throw blanket. In just a wink, he was out and slept like a baby. The next day rolled around and Oscar groaned as he grabbed his alarm clock, throwing it onto the ground. When that didn't stop the annoying alarm from going off, he got up and turned it off. He let out a sigh and set the alarm clock back on his nightstand. Well, what he calls a nightstand. It was the box that his nightstand was in. Oscar moved into this apartment almost 3 months ago. His mom had kicked him out since he didn't want to get a job and a place for himself. He ended up finding this rundown apartment on Craigslist. This was the cheapest option for him at the time when he didn't have a job. Now, he works as a fryer at a local White Castle. Oscar didn't plan to work at a fast food restaurant. Originally, he wanted to go to trade school for welding, but he talked himself out of it. He rolled out of his bed and grabbed his uniform, quickly changing into it. Oscar grabbed his broken stick of deodorant and put it on, throwing the stick away once he was done. He made his way to a small kitchen and threw 2 pieces of bread in his rusted toaster. Once the toast popped out of the toaster, he grabbed the slices and ate them, not feeling like spreading butter on them. He checked the time on his phone and threw his leftovers away. Time to go to work. Can't wait to quit this job. He rubbed his eyes as he walked out of the house. The week had gone by slowly. Oscar still had not received a call from an army recruiter. While he was laying in his bed, his phone began ringing. He groaned and reached for his phone, looking at the caller ID. He hung up, suspecting it to be a spam caller. After a few seconds, his phone rang again. Oscar cussed under his breath before he answered. "If this is a stupid spam caller, I swear to the Lord above us, you will not be seeing the sun," he warned the person on the other end of the call. The person cleared their throat before they began to speak. "I may inform you that I am not a spam caller. I am a recruiter from the U.S. Army that you enlisted in." The recruiter spoke with a stern voice. "My name is Adam. I am here to help you get everything set up for the Army," he said. The sound of movement was heard from the phone. "We can talk about setting up a meeting today." The movement stopped. Oscar thought about it and sat up. "Yeah, I'd probably have to call off work." He yawned and rubbed his eyes. Adam nodded, even though they weren't in person. "Alright. When's the next time you have off?" Adam asked while he looked through his calendar. Oscar hummed while he thought. "In a month. We're short-staffed currently." He looked straight ahead at his wall. Months had gone by. Oscar was in a meeting with Adam at a local restaurant. "So, you were set to leave on September 19th. You have 2 months to pack and get everything else set up. I'm not going to be holding your hand much longer," Adam said with a stern voice, shoveling a burger in his mouth. Oscar nodded with a sigh. "I'll get my stuff ready." The meeting ended once they were done eating. Oscar stood outside of the restaurant waiting for Marcus. "Dude, what takes so long to get from your house to here? You literally live 5 minutes away." He grumbled and checked his phone. Marcus pulled in after a few minutes and honked the horn. Oscar looked up and went over to the car, getting in. "Sorry, I got stuck behind a slowpoker," Marcus said while he backed out of the parking lot. "It's fine. I leave in 2 months. I have no idea what state I'm going to, though." He ran a hand down his face. Marcus nodded and drove off. The ride back to Oscar's apartment was quiet. Quiet enough that the quietness was loud. Marcus pulled into the small parking lot and unlocked the car doors. "I'll see you later," he said with a gloomy look on his face. Oscar nodded and got out, heading into his part of the building. Nothing could prepare Oscar for what he was about to go through in 2 months. "I'll be gone for God knows how long," he groaned as he lay down in his bed, dreading absolutely everything. After a few minutes he had fallen asleep, sleeping all through the night and through his alarms. Oscar woke up, yawning as he struggled to sit up. He grabbed his phone and checked the time, noticing that he was 3 hours late to work. "Oh my God, how did I sleep in for that long?" He groaned and looked at the messages from the boss. "I get fired for this, I'm going to do some heinous crimes," he threatened, continuing to read the message. He set his phone down and cussed under his breath. "I'm jobless. This is stupid." Oscar spent his 2 months packing, stressing, and isolating himself from his friends. Today, September 19th, Oscar was leaving for Florida. He piled his bags and Marcus's car, getting in the front passenger seat once he was done. "So I won't see you until next year," Marcus said and looked at Oscar. "I have no idea. I'll be doing basic training for 6 weeks, have graduation, then go right back in for other things. He looked out the window, avoiding eye contact. Marcus nodded and looked away, driving off to the airport to meet up with Adam. Once they arrived, Oscar got out and grabbed his bags. Waving by, Marcus returned the favor and drove off once Oscar was in the airport. Oscar scrambled through TSA, taking about 30 minutes to get to where Adam was sitting. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I was having a hard time getting up this morning. He apologized and sat down in the seat next to him. Adam nodded and looked at him. You'll be okay. Almost everyone is like that. You'll like the people you're going to meet, and they'll like you too. He gave him a soft smile. After hours of waiting, they finally boarded the plane. Oscar had the window seat, Adam was in the middle, and a random guy was seated in the aisle. The flight was only 3 hours long. Oscar fell asleep, and Adam talked with the guy next to him. Once the plane landed, Adam woke up out. Oscar, we're here. Wake up, sleepyhead. Adam chuckled and got up out of the airplane seat. Oscar got up and grabbed his bags from the overhead bin. They got off the plane and walked through the airport, finding their escort out of the airport.
May I have your attention, please? At this time, shelter in place.
After a few hours of driving, they arrived at the army base. Oscar was shown around the area and got settled in. Everyone was getting settled in and getting to know each other. The day went on. Oscar had found some pretty cool people to talk to. Years had gone by and Oscar was still in the army, actively serving at this very moment. Oscar and the rest of his wave were waiting at the bottom of the cliff, waiting for it to be clear enough for them to climb up the mantle rope. After a few minutes, a radio signal came through and they were sent up the cliff. When they got up there, the ground was mushy and coated with a layer of blood. Oscar gagged and continued to walk to their trenches. He jumped down into the trench and got his gear set up. I think we should take a moment to pray. Oscar looked at everyone, holding his hands out. The rest of the group nodded and took each other's hands, whispering the Lord's Prayer. Once they finished the prayer, a shot was heard. They looked between each other. Before everything went south, they moved out of the trench and went further back on the battlefield, some of the soldiers dying in the process. The battle went on for hours, and Oscar had lost a good number of his friends. His face was covered in dirt, dried blood, and tears. He slowly walked around the battlefield, keeping an eye out for an enemy. He froze when he heard a twig snap, and slowly turned around. He let out a sigh when he noticed it was one of his friends, and walked over to him. We need to get out of sight of the enemy. Come on, Bruce. He put a hand on his shoulder and continued to walk. Bruce followed him, shooting at the enemy as they got close to them. You better pray that we make it out of here, Bruce said. A few days had gone by, and Bruce had passed a little after he found Oscar. Oscar was hiding behind a tree stump, trying to get his thoughts straight. He had a gash in his leg and a bolt hole in his arm. He ran a hand down his face and attempted to get up, leaning against the tree as he shot at the enemy as they ran at him. After a few minutes of shots being fired back and forth, a grenade was thrown his way. He smiled slightly, accepting that this might be his final breath. The grenade landed in the pit of the tree and exploded after a few seconds. Oscar went flying back, landing on a pile of bodies. He lifted his head, seeing that he no longer had an arm or a leg. Oscar knew he wouldn't live to see another day. He knew that the war would come to an end soon. Adam came running to his side, giving a shot of morphine. You'll be okay, Oscar. I'll get you down the cliff and tell the medics. You'll live. He panicked and started to lift him up. Oscar pushed away from him, using the last bit of energy he had. Adam, leave me. I'm not going to live, and I'm fine with that. I'd rather die than live with this for the rest of my life. Oscar coughed up blood and looked up at the gloomy sky. It's going to rain. You should go find the others before they get buried in mud. Oscar looked at him with a weak smile. Adam slowly nodded. I'll come back and get you. We only have 5 minutes left. He suddenly got up, going to find the others. Oscar looked back up at the sky, counting the seconds in his head. 5 seconds had passed, and he closed his eyes. 5 minutes had passed, and he closed his eyes, not waking back up. Adam ran back over to him, getting down on his knees and shaking him. "Come on, come on, come on," he cried out, slapping him across the face a few times. Adam hooked his arms around Oscar instead of carrying him. "You gotta live, we'll bring you back."